economic disclosure statement. Today I'm going to walk you through some background information about the EDS and then go through the registration process and filing a simple EDS. So let's go to the next slide. So online economic disclosure statements are required for all applicants who contract with the city. So what is an applicant? An applicant is anybody who is seeking some sort of transaction with the city. The most common ones that we deal with, of course, are bidders and proposers on procurement bids, RFPs, and RFQs. In this case, if you are looking to seek city business that you have not had before, you will need to bid on city contracts that are announced, as Jackie mentioned earlier in the introduction. And EDSs, or economic disclosure forms, are required for all such bids. If you're with a delegate agency and you're looking for a city grant, those also require EDSs. And lastly, but not least, there's a third class of transactions with the city that would require EDSs, and those are awardees of city council approved agreements. So those are what we would call non-DPS contracts. These are contracts that generally would not appear in the buying plan, but they can be very significant and large, such as, for example, the Divvy bike program for the city was one of these. Those are going through other departments, not DPS, because those contracts go through city council and not the chief procurement officer. So be aware that if you're looking to participate on any such contract like that as the prime contractor, you are required to submit EDSs. And EDSs are also required for legal entity owners who own more than 7.5% of the applicant. So depending on how your business is structured, you may have to submit more than one EDS. If you're a small business where the owners are individuals, so let's say you and a partner and maybe a third person own the shares of stock of your company, and in that case, you're not a legal entity owner, you're an individual owner, you are not required to fill out individual EDSs per owner. You just do the one EDS on behalf of the applicant for the company itself. However, if your company is owned by yet another company or an LLC or anything which is not the direct owner, but it's companies owning companies, then EDSs are required for all of those. We won't get into an example of that today because those tend to be more complicated, and there is a guide to how to do that, and we'll explain where the resources are as well. But we'll keep the illustration simple today with just individual owners. Next slide, please. So what is the purpose of filing an EDS? So EDSs are for transparency of city expenditures. So when city taxpayer money is being spent, EDSs provide the taxpayers an understanding of several things. One is ownership and control, meaning who are we doing business with? Who is running this company that is receiving a city contract? Who are the retained parties? This is most often in DPS contracts, subcontractors, but there may be other types of retained parties, such as lawyers and consultants and others. And then finally, EDSs provide an opportunity for the vendor to attest to their compliance with municipal, state, and federal laws and regulations that are applicable to the transaction and to the responsibility of the vendor in general. Next slide, please. So online EDS benefits. You can, the online EDS is an innovation over the paper EDS that used to be filed with the city, and that was and is still used in a few select situations, not in DPS. EDS information is saved and used for future EDS documents. This saves time for you because if you bid on one contract, your information is saved and carried over should you decide to bid on something else and you see there's multiple lines of business with the city. Your information does not have to be retyped. It will carry over from one contract to the other, at least the background information. The contract specific information, of course, won't carry over, but that makes your filing the next time much, much easier. There's also online error checking, which increases the accuracy of the submitted EDSs. It will skip questions that don't apply to you, and it will also let you know what questions must be answered, and it will flag any areas of concern prior to your submittal. So the online EDS provides for electronic submittal, approval, and posting to the web for all EDSs associated with approved contracts, because your EDS filing is a public document, as is the city contract that you are awarded. So overall, this results in significantly greater transparency for the awarded contracts that go to the web, and also the public then is able to view the officers, directors, owners, and retained parties. And so now I'm going to request that Jackie let me share my screen, and I'm going to walk you through the register. I'm sorry, we have one more. We have online EDS features, yes, and then I'm sorry, Jackie, go ahead and go back to the features, and then I'll go through that, and then we'll go and share the screen. So ownership, I'm sorry, one more. I'm sorry, the features, yes, thank you. So self-service electronic registration is what we're going to see next. We're going to see how you electronically sign your EDS. And as I mentioned before, the information will carry over for up to 1 year after you file your EDS. And thereafter, if you are continuing to do business with the city, you're going to receive an annual reminder of your expiring EDS so you can go and update your information. So let's now move to the screen sharing part, and then I will walk you through registration. Okay, so Jackie, how do I start to share? The share is grayed out. Oh, here it is. Okay, thank you. Share content. Go. And hold on. That is this. And here we are. Okay. So Jackie, before we begin, can you confirm that we see the training EDS screen?
I see an online EDS screen that says home.
I'm sorry, that says?
It says home.
Yes, perfect. So very good. So I'm going to continue now. Thank you very much, Jackie. So we have the home screen of the online EDS, which is available at www.chicago.gov/EDS. And then you scroll down to the end of the page and you will hit Get Started Online. You click that button, it's going to take you here. And you have Home, EDS Search, Vendor Registration, and Support. In order for you to utilize online EDS, you must have an account. And the login account is created by vendor registration. It is a self-service process, and you start this by clicking vendor registration. So if you have multiple companies, each company must have a unique ID. You cannot reuse the ID if, let's say, your company has multiple layers of ownership. In this case, I believe for most of the listeners on today's call, that should not be applicable to you, but if it is, we can discuss it after the demo. So here, we would first give information about the user. So let's do this. We'll just say, and you put in the information, fill in the name, the title, the business phone. You pick a user ID which needs to meet certain criteria. You can click on this little question mark to see the user ID requirements, and you must have your ID be at least 7 characters long. And so we'll make you need to select your ID, pick your initial password, and then you have to put in your email address. Your secret question is one of 3, and this becomes part of your electronic signature. Oops, let's make sure that the password is typed correctly and that they match. But you see the system has error checking through and through. And then once we put in the information for the individual user, you need to come in and give information about your company. So for most folks who are just starting here, it's best to say, do you know your company's tax ID number? In this case, you would put in your FEIN number, and I'm going to and then so once you put in your company name and the FEIN number, the system will ask you for some more basic information about your company. So in this case, it's the address information. And then when you're through entering company information, the system gives you a confirmation screen to allow you to check and change any information that may be entered incorrectly. If it is correct, you receive either this checkbox, I am not a robot, or you might receive what's called a CAPTCHA, which will present pictures to you, and then you have to match the criteria that the CAPTCHA is asking you for. It might be click on all the pictures of school buses or stop signs or what have you. And the purpose of those is to screen out automatic registrations that hackers may do for trying to use systems to spam people or engage in other unsavory activities. So we click on this, and then we hit confirm. And now the registration is complete. If for some reason it says that your registration needs to be approved by somebody, that means your company has already been registered and your information is being forwarded to the approver who is on file for your company. And that person would have to approve the registration prior to your account being activated. So now what I have to do is look for an email, which will give me a confirmation code. I do need, oh, I'm sorry, a confirmation link. I need to click on that before I'm able to log in. So I'm going to look for this now. Here we go. You will get an email that looks something like this. Dear so-and-so, your application for an account with the City of Chicago's online economic disclosure statement as a representative of your company has been approved. Your username is blah, blah, blah. And click this link to activate your account and confirm that your email address is correct. So we'll go ahead and click the link. And now it's confirmed. Now we're allowed to log in. And this takes us back to the home screen that you saw before with several key differences here. So you'll see that the menu choices have changed a little bit. You now have EDS search, my EDS, company administrator, support, my profile. So let's go through some of these. If you need to change your information, you can click on my profile. So let's say your business telephone number changes or your email changes. You can make all these changes from here. You can also change your password from here if you so desire. We'll leave all that unknown here. As the first user of this, you become what's called the EDS captain. EDS captain is essentially an administrator for the company's accounts. You have site administration and user administration. Site administration, allows you to change information about the company. This is a test site, so our developers could be working on it, fixing bugs or something, so that wasn't working. User administration, hopefully, will allow you to approve additional users, as I mentioned earlier, who might be registering after you. Now, what we want to do here is My EDS. My EDS lets you create new EDSs. You can look for EDSs that you have submitted. If the city returns the EDSs to you for correction, you'll find them here. And if you have drafts that you have saved but not yet submitted, they'll also be here. And then if you're working on something, you'll see them in EDS in process. You can also search for EDSs, but we won't go into that now since the purpose of today's workshop is filing an EDS. Ooh. Okay, so little technical difficulty. What I can do is I'm going to go and use another test user that we have in our live site and log in there. But we were able to successfully register a vendor here. The process is the same, only that we will be using one of our validation test accounts as opposed to this one we just created. So bear with me in just a moment. Log out. Okay. Okay, so we're back. We go to create new. And this is the first screen you will see when you come to the filing screen. And the first question you're asked is, do you have an EDS invitation number? If you are the applicant doing business with the City of Chicago, you will not need an invitation number. The invitation numbers are issued for legal entity owners who will also need to file their own EDSs, as we mentioned earlier. But if you don't have that situation, you won't have an invitation number, and you would just leave it no. And then you get into this question, is this an EDS for a contract or an EDS information update? Most of the time here, if you have business that you are planning to seek with the city, such as you're planning to bid on a contract, and you know you have a definite contract that you're bidding on, you need to say contract. Information update is if you're planning on doing future business and you don't have any particular contract that you're bidding on, you can fill in an information update. Although there's no requirement to do so. You only really need to fill out an EDS if you have a bid on the horizon. So I would say go ahead and just click contract. And then notice the information that you set up for your account transfers over here. So the address we set up for your user is pre-filled here, and you're pre-filled as the contact person. And we click fill out EDS. And then we get taken to the general information section. We'll just talk a little bit about the navigation here. The EDS has different sections, so you can see the sections run down the left side, and each section may have several pages to it. So you will see those pages listed up here, and you can navigate by jumping around if you wish to different ones, and you see it will change the menus accordingly. But let's just go in order. That's the simplest way, and then make our way through the filing of a full EDS. So here, again, the gray boxes have been pre-filled with information from either your login or from a previous EDS that you filed. Since this is the first time, well, actually this demo account may have other information pre-filled, but let's go through and see. If you have a doing business as, then you can fill that in here. If you don't, most of you should be filling in the status is the disclosing party submitting this EDS is the applicant. All these others refer to if you have multiple layers of ownership. You still probably shouldn't touch this, because if you do the invitations, it will fill this in. But in those cases, you would be looking perhaps to call the help desk or the procurement specialist who's working with you on that contract. So again, your address has been pre-filled, telephone number, fax, contact person, email, it's all pre-filled. And then okay, so let's now go to the general information. So brief description of the contract. So let's say you are bidding on a contract for this. You pick the department with most of the contracts. With the contracts that we are doing, you want to pick procurement services. Your solicitation will have a specification number. And then you won't have a contract number at the beginning. You won't have a revision, but if these numbers were given to you on an existing contract, you may have to put these in. If you're, for example, amending an existing contract, those numbers become important. Then you indicate the nature of the disclosing party. So In this case, let's pretend we're a privately held business corporation. That's quite common for small businesses, and that you are organized in the state of Illinois. And then you would say, do you have any directors? If you have directors, yes. Then we would require that they be disclosed. So you would add a row, and each row you would list the name of the director. So you would say, so let's say this is a small company, offers the director both. You have the roles, you can indicate here, confirm. And then ownership. Here you have to disclose the ownership. Now, to disclose ownership, you have to indicate all the different layers of ownership. And we can do that by clicking add owner. And so this is just, you can't actually click up here. These are just legends that describe what these are. So add owner is this little person with the plus. Let's click that. And then it asks you, is the owner you wish to add an individual or legal entity? Most the ones we deal with here are individuals. So let's go. And then it pre-populates the business address. You can change it. We don't recommend that you put personal addresses here, because then it would be disclosed to the public. And let's say Roger Rabbit owns 100%. Then you fill that in, confirm it. So then what happens here is you see the ownership structure is being created. Here it's a nice simple ownership structure, so it's completed. If you had multiple owners, they would all be listed here. And every so often we want to click the save button, so that if the system kicks you out or you lose your internet connection or whatever, you won't lose your information. And then now we come to beginning of compliance questions. So these questions all need to be answered, and disclosing party refers to you, or if it was an owner EDS, it could refer to the owner, whoever's filling out the EDS. And we'll say no and no. And if we just say yes to them, you see, I want to illustrate that there are some questions only get asked if you respond a certain way. So this one, if you responded yes, then you'd be asked an additional question, follow-up question. If the answer is no, you see there is no follow-up. So the system makes it easier for you that way by only showing you the relevant questions. And then here is retained parties, where if you have subcontractors, you need to disclose your subcontractors that you plan on using for this contract. So let's just say that there are subs here, and we'll say yes. We'll add. And anticipated retain means that anticipated means you have not hired them yet, but you may hire them in the future. And of course, since you're just bidding on a potential contract, you may not even get the bid. So it's, of course, it's anticipated. So then you can say they're a subcontractor. They could be minority or non-minority. Your anticipated fees. So let's say 5% estimated that. And then when you have finished entering the subcontractor or the retained party, it's listed here so you can validate the information. You can edit it if it's incorrect. If this one was entered completely erroneously, you can take it out. And then you're asked, do you anticipate retaining any persons? So if we were hiring Sam Sub in his corporate capacity, then that was listed, as opposed to if you are hiring somebody in their personal capacity, then you would say yes here, but most people, it's no. And then you run into a page of certifications. These are more compliance items that you need to certify to, that you are in compliance. And we can just go through and fill them out. And again, these, if you are unable to certify, it will ask you to explain why you can't certify to this, because these are compliance issues that are expected to be okay. And if you don't have, if you're not in compliance for whatever reason, an explanation has to be provided. At any point when you, if you are wondering what I'm certifying to, then you can always click these, and this will give you the detail of the particular laws and regulations that you are certifying to. Oops, let's go back. Here we are. And you are not a financial institution in this case. So here we're just assuming that you're in full compliance. And then you run into this question, is the matter federally funded? You will be told in your solicitation document, the bid document, whether there's federal funds. If there are federal funds, then you have to answer yes. If there are not, as if it's only city funded, then the answer is no. If federally funded projects have additional compliance requirements. And then here, there's a number of items that you have to agree to as a condition of your city contract. And then we run to various appendices. And these appendices need to be filled out as well. The first one deals with if you have any, if you're related to any city officials, then you need to disclose them here. If you have building code violations, you need, they're going to have to be disclosed here. And then there's a prohibition on wage and salary history screening. So you need to indicate your compliance here. And if there's any supplemental information that needs to be disclosed to the city, maybe additional clarifications and answers that were entered earlier, you can do two things. You can type a short explanation if it's up to 1,000 characters in this box, or if you have a more lengthy explanation, it can be attached as a PDF. And here we have none. So the last step is then we validate and submit. It will check to make sure that all required fields have been answered and that there are no discrepancies within your EDS. So once you validate, then at this point, you see the ready to submit screen. The ready to submit screen is saying that you're warranting that you have authority to file this EDSs, and that everything that you say in this EDS is true, accurate, and complete, and that you then are signing electronically. And your signature consists of your login password, which you set up earlier, and then your secret question that was also set up. Oops. And if you run into any problems here, this is a common problem we see. The city is not correct. You can view your answer here, and apparently it needs to match as far as case sensitivity as well. So notice I went to my profile now. How do I get back? I can go to EDS in process and click the number, and it takes me back to that EDS. So validate and submit. Now we have electronically signed our EDS, and now we're ready to print our certificate of filing. So this brings up a PDF of the certificate of filing. You can save one for your records, also print it, and then at this point, you are completed with your EDS. Your EDS will show up under recently submitted, and you'll have a list of them here. You can read only the three dots is a shorthand for additional menu items. So here you can view related EDSs, which is owner EDSs. You can view the whole package of EDSs, or you can print your certificate if you lost it or didn't print it the first time. So all these are available here. If you have any need for assistance, you can click here and look for manuals and videos, frequently asked questions. They're all here for your perusal. You can contact us right at the top. It says, if you run into any issues, we do have an EDS help desk. You can contact customer support at cityofchicago.org or call 312-744-HELP between business hours of 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Mondays through Fridays, excluding city holidays. So that concludes my presentation on registration and filing of an online EDS. Now, I will take questions. Jackie, I don't see any questions, but are there any that?
I am definitely here.
Okay.
I don't see any questions either, so I am going to put a call out for the questions. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen. And we will get the questions. We'll give them a few minutes to do that, and I'll see if anybody is writing to send us anything. But I just wanted to say thank you, Ben, for imparting that great information and giving us a run through, a live run through with the online EDS. And if anyone would like to receive a copy or get a copy of the presentations, or see this information on the recording, I will be putting in the chat area that information, if you give me a few seconds to do that. And I'm just going to ask Ben, do you have any additional, last minute uh, words that you would like to impart while I do this? I don't see any questions so far. So if you have any um, information that you wanted to impart to them, let me know. And if not, I will go ahead and close this out.
I just want to thank all the attendees for coming to today's presentation, and look forward to seeing you at another presentation down the line.
Great. Um, all right, so I am going to put the information in the chat. So if you want to find the PowerPoint, the best thing to do, as I said before, is to go online to www.chicago.gov /DPS. That's where you will find our PowerPoints. Well, you'll find everything there, I should say. You will find everything there. And then we also have the information in YouTube at www.youtube.com /Chicago DPS. And again, you will have to, if you're trying to see this particular presentation, when you get to the Chicago DPS landing page, you would have to put in the title of the workshop that you'd like to see, because you can view all of the workshops, not just this one. You can view any of the workshops. So if you just want to see this one, you have to put in the title of this workshop. So I am going to submit that now to you online to everyone. And that's the YouTube link. And then for the PowerPoint, I will type that one in as well. And thank you, Ben, so much for the presentation. If you'd like to sign off, I'm going to just send them this information. So you can go ahead and sign off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great one today.
Bye-bye.
If there are any additional questions or comments or anything, feel free to write dps.events@cityofchicago.org, and we'll be more than glad to answer any of your questions. I hope all of you receive the information that I put in the links. And I will just put an easier route in there as well, just so in case you want that. And there you go. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.